Today, Jerry Gidel will assess the heat in the US and its market effects, and yet the planting programs. Right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we had a very hot week in the United States, both in the Northeast and the Midwest. But still we had some rains that the market seems to be pricing in, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's always interesting in the world of agriculture. Uh, the weather was, forecasted to be warmer this late last week and through this week and that. But the one thing that always seems to grab people's attention, and particularly is the fact that the next rain around is always going to be bigger and better than the one we've had, and all that. And to some extent, in the month of June, we're not under pollination issues and things of that nature. So we're a scenario here of maybe having a chance to recover. I guess it's going to be real interesting as to what our moisture situations like from the standpoint Mississippi River westward. We definitely had some pretty good moisture here over the last 6 weeks or so from there, and so to some extent the rains that did occur here over the weekend last week, and then we had another shot of it here on Tuesday, uh, and that we had some pretty good rains into Wednesday, Tuesday night into Wednesday, and that. But the biggest thing in this thing is that the Eastern Corn Belt and the big states of Illinois, Indiana, and that didn't get the rains. We'll see there is some forecasted rains for now in the Saturday night into Sunday, and that. We'll see if that comes about. But that's kind of the nature of the beast here in the world of commodities. It's what the forecast is sometimes has more impact than the actual conditions. And it was pretty nasty out there. We're talking, like you say, mid 90s up to the high 90s in some places, and things like that. And the fact that, the shower activity was not that impressive east of central Iowa, and we'll see what it turns out to be when it's all said and done. But weather is highly important this time of year, and it's going to be interesting as to how we get this pollination going, because that's really the next big event here for corn. And right now, at least, they're still forecasting above normal temps and generally limited moisture. I wouldn't say it's complete drought by any means in the month of July and through the end of the July-August period. So that was put out by the National Weather Service here this week. So we still have a lot of issues that this crop has to face, and we've already kind of pulled these prices back pretty significantly since where they were here in mid to late May.
Well, I had the opportunity to travel over the weekend to Pennsylvania, and I've been to some corn and soybean fields in the region of Lancaster, and they seem pretty good so far. They expect to be under the average yields or higher. So far so good for the Northeast in terms of corn and soybean developing, but there is still a long way to go. I'll come back there by the end of July.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Well, I think the one interesting thing is you had tried to get out there last year in that same area, and the weather was so rainy and things like that, very delayed plantings, things of that nature. Definitely different scenario this year. But at the same time, I can't say that the world is in the Northeast, at least, has had excessive moisture by any means. I have to say there's places in the Delta and and maybe the Mid-South and parts of Missouri and Southern Illinois that's had more moisture. But definitely the other thing, of course, when we get together there, like you say, in late July, we'll be looking at the central Illinois corn prospects and how this weather's going to impact it. But things to look forward to there, of course, those things. From there, the one positive thing that came through this week, and I don't think it got a lot of publicity because it really kind of showed up today, is the fact that we had a delayed weekly U.S. export sales, and that with well, the absolute corn number sales were only 20 million, but we were so far ahead with some good, strong export sales here in the 40s and 50s, and that we really only need 70 million more sales to reach the USDA's 2.15 billion bushel level. And we got 12 weeks to go. That means we only need about 6 million a week. That's really kind of a modest thing to accomplish in here. The other key thing, of course, we need to ship it out after we sell it, but I think that's is a possibility here at this point. The one thing that's really kind of made things twisted here has been China in this situation. They seem to be in a real conservative attitude right now about making purchases and things like that. They haven't really even bought as many beans in South America as they might have done in the past. From there, I'm not sure they're waiting to buy Brazilian corn or not. That's also another interesting one here at this point. I think the Brazilians are somewhere around oh high teens, maybe 20% now. They were 10% last week on their harvesting process. And that last year we had an unbelievable combination of a big bean crop and a corn crop that came in, and it became a total mess down there. And that's what kind of took the top off of the last year's prices, was all the all the competition from Brazil. In the same vein here, the soybean exports this week were 20 million too, which doesn't sound big, but it's the highest one we've had in about 6 or 8 weeks, and that only leaves about 70 million to hit that number in the next 12 weeks till the 1st of September. So that's another interesting twist in here, that I think our overseas demand's pretty good. I think our crush demand's pretty good in beans. The interesting thing turns out to be on the corn demand. I think we had a rough month there with ethanol, couple earlier this year, and I think that's going to hang in here and have a good, strong performance at the end. One time we were maybe going to go ahead and have a chance to go over that, but we kind of ran out of capacity here on some things. Same kind of thing in the U.S. soybean crush, but because of soybean oil kind of nicking it back. But in both of those domestic demand situations, I think we're going to be all right from there. So the USDA is going to put out their stocks reports for the 1st of June. And that's where we're going to have some interesting twists on things, where we're going to start to see if last year's corn crop and soybean crops are really going to be on target here for the coming year. The corn crop particularly has been something I've been keeping an eye on here for this year. And we've got a pretty strong feed demand already being projected, but if the stocks reports, which really right now, if you use the basic calculations and what the seasonal demands have been in the past, we'd have a number of about nearly 5 billion bushels for this month, for the June 28th number, a week from today. But I'm wondering if we might find something lower than that. I'm kind of anticipating a 4.85 billion bushel number. I think that could be an indication that last year's adjusted late yield maybe didn't turn out to be as strong as the 177 bushel USDA numbers. We have had adjustments made. They won't officially come about until September. After September, I guess normally 30th stocks report, but it's a possibility. It's something to look forward, something to consider and look at when we look at those numbers next Friday. Soybeans, of course, will have a similar situation. I think that's a little tricky. I kind of feel like it could be 20 or 30 million, possibly overestimated, which could tighten up our carryover stock from the 350 down to maybe 310 or 320, something like that. But the soybean side of things is going to be a lot more tied into South America and how that final crop number starts to finalize out here at this point.
Now you are anticipating that the planting will have more progress than last year with soybeans, and that will not be the case with corn.
Well, yeah, definitely the spring indications here for corn were off sharply. I think they were closer to like 4.5 million acres on that, and soybeans were 2.9 was the estimated increase back in the March the numbers the USDA had. And the interesting total of this thing is if you start to put together the corn and soybeans, you put together the wheat, which includes the spring wheat that was planted this year, put some oats and barley in there, the cotton, some rice, things like that. And overall, that kind of nugget of plantings in the USDA actually was down about 4.5 million acres on the March 31st planning intentions report. That is going to be an interesting to look at. I don't know that our weather this spring was all the, excuse me, our price incentives were there, and weather was a little bit back and forth here too. But I kind of feel like that one of the traditions of U.S. agriculture is there's fields out there that back in March they were grumpy and they didn't like the prices and stuff like that, so they said they weren't going to plant some of these acres. But usually, what happens is that things like that do get planted from there. Because as I said, we're 4.5 million down. That gave my number just a smidgen under 49 million number on actual plantings. And I kind of feel like that there might be a slight increases in both corn and beans. Now, I know that doesn't think, well, what's that about? Well, it's because of the fact that I think that the number in March was a tad low. Now, do I feel like that's crushing scenarios? The bean price, corn price are going to collapse? I don't think so because the yields are so important. But you look at the total scenario there, we're so kind of out of kilter from where we were a year ago. Those lands have still out there, so they're probably going to get some of them planted. Now, as I said, 1.2 million, I think it is. On corn is my estimate at 91.2, and on the soybean side, that's a smidgen over 87, with about a 50 or 500 million increase or so on that one. From there, I guess the biggest question on that is, will the USDA go around and keep their 181 and 52 bushel yields for their progress for the 2024 crop size? That's still way out in front of us here at this point. I think the small grains will go up a little bit. I think cotton actually will go up because of some rains they had in West Texas from there. But so overall, I kind of feel like the total number of big crops in the U.S. will be up about 1,950,000 acres. We'll see if that it's from the psychology of the market. Sometimes every acre is going to turn out to be a good one. Well, in some cases, the marginal acres that we're thinking about adding to us here are probably not the best yielding acres either. So, but that's how the world thinks these days. From there, I guess the key thing looking into the the next week or 10 days until we get into early July here and the pollination issues start to come into effect is going to be what our weather forecasts and moisture amounts will be, really from Omaha, Nebraska, all the way to Columbus, Ohio. That's really the heart of U.S. agriculture, and we'll see what that all turns out to be. But right now, at least, we've got some numbers next Friday that will be important psychologically for the market as we go forward into the 2024 growing season.
Well, and another factor that we could weigh in is about the short-term opportunities regarding the devaluation of the Brazilian real. The Brazilian farmers have been hesitant to sell at this time, uh, speculating for an even higher devaluation.
Well, yes, I think there's been some of that going on in the background, you bet. And uh it's been close to the kind of the breakout point of that devaluation for what month or more, and it did advance through that previous high this week, and so yeah, that makes a little more competition potentially here going forward from the standpoint of soybean purchases from China or around the world. And to some extent, that makes uh, as I mentioned earlier, we've really got a lot of our sales already on the book, so I don't think the impact on purchases will be as noted in the U.S. here for the balance of this year. But what its impact will really be a lot more competitive as we go into the new crop situation out there. So that potentially could mean less sales for the coming year if the biggest problem with that is that still have some kind of reduced supplies in Brazil from a year ago situation. Is it 147 or is it 152? I think there's that 5 million metric tons could be important, but at this point, that's the other feature we're dealing with here. Argentina is also another one. We've had a lot of different issues hit that crops down there, and that we're finalizing our second seedings of corn down there, and we've had a lot of issues on that from along the way from the leafhoppers and other things. So South America's output is still a little bit unknown, but right now at least the focus in the world is on the U.S. Growing season. And I think to some extent what might be happening with the Black Sea, that's still backing out there. Ukraine has really been shipping a lot of good stuff. We had a lot of ups and downs here on what Russia might turn out to be. Right now, they've kind of felt like things have stabilized a little bit there. Some people even actually add a little bit to their estimates for Russian wheat and that, but it's still not going to be a 90 million metric ton crop. It's a lot closer to 80 to 83 than it is 93. So, guess we'll find that out as we get further along here. But right now, at least, the U.S. wheat harvest is moving along, and that didn't help the wheat price this week all either. It got kind of beat up, but this should be a potentially maybe the next couple of weeks kind of a bottom in the wheat market here in the U.S.
All right, we'll talk next week. Thank you.
Sounds great. You had